welcome back to another Linux Gamecast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, Steam announces the top sellers of 2016, and there's some Linux in them, and we finally get a second Leadvux title, but it kind of has some fishy reviews.
Can Intel's own optimized Linux distribution give gaming life to a bunch of underpowered laptops? Not really. And it's not Source Porn Maker, but it's pretty close. Brace yourself. The hentai is coming.
Valve kicks the live support machine on the horse, and with it come a bunch of small improvements. And Haswell is finally getting proper OpenGL support in Mesa. Why should you care? I don't know, but I care.
I'm Vince Stone here at LGC Actual, running around with a Portuguese reach around courtesy of Space Portugal, because Charter can die in a fire. Switching the bits, doing all this on Linux on all ends, joined also every week by my favorite man from up north, Master Sfang.
I'm someone's favorite something for once.
And the guy making a Jankotron stream possible, but we got to give you a live show because that's how we roll.
Yep.
Young Master Mateus.
Right here.
And together
From
with
all the way
Shotwell
across the
Dynamic, helping us form that last little bit of Cocaine Voltron. Before we get started, we like to see what's going on in each other's life organs. Not a whole lot for me this week. The big thing was last night in Athens and the Atlantas. They're like, oh, a snowflake might fall. Shut down everything. So that's pretty much been my life. What's up, J-Baby?
I mean, we've been rocking -10 in Toronto for the past week, so, Crimea River, Atlanta. No, it's just work stuff. Having a job means that my life gets a lot less interesting. Though, what was it? I checked out that Oz thing, Emerald City. It's all right. We'll see how that goes.
And around here, I've been futzing with that KD Neon on the cheapo laptop. Surprisingly, if you start with KD as a base and you make everything work in your distro, KD Plasma 5 is actually not too bad. There are still a couple of issues that I'd like to see fixed, and I've made a couple of bug reports waiting on the... actually, one of them was already marked as won't fix, so I don't know what the hell's up with that. But I'm kind of hoping that the rest of them will get through.
Well, speaking of things not getting fixed, I hear the horse has finally got off his lazy ass and is doing some stuff for once. Isn't that right? It's the Steamworks update.
Bring it. Put it in my face.
All right.
Yes. So this was the January 5th Steam beta client update. And, you start reading the changelog, and it's like, oh, there's one general fix, a couple of big picture fixes, and then Linux. It's like, whoa, where did all that come from? So they changed the runtime that it's now sort of disabled by default. They introduced a new environment variable that prefers host libraries. If you want it, you can disable that, and the runtime will go back to the way it used to work beforehand. There were a couple of issues that cropped up before that, namely people who used app indicator system trays, like, with KDE or Unity or Cinnamon, or basically most of the desktop operating systems that claim to be modern. All of those were having issues because it turns out everyone was missing a particular dependency, which, the runtime provided, and there will be the correct one listed in the show notes. It's, let me make sure, it's libdbusmenu-gtk4, the 32-bit version of it. And apparently, in the release notes, they also said that the Steam client now obeys SIGTERM, which it should mean that. Go on.
That's nice. It's a good bug fix, considering you couldn't normally just plain old kill Steam sometimes. Sometimes you had to bust out Steam 9, which, if you understand how Linux signal handling works, means that you shouldn't probably be using this application. but Steam gonna Steam and whatnot. One of the interesting bits that they included though was the ability to configurate. That's a word. Mm-hmm. Yes, I am English good. You're able to configure the regular Xbox controllers using Steam Big Picture mode and the Steam controller mapping functionality, which is nice because now you can straight up just remap controls the hard way.
Yeah, and it was the obvious ones, which were, the Xbox 360 controllers that everyone in their CAD has, were the only ones that weren't really supported because you could already have the full quote-unquote Steam controller mapping functionality on the DualShock 4 as well. It's like, why not the other?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the generic Xbox One, Xbox 360 controller is the default PC controller, so you ideally wouldn't need any weird configuration with it, because you should just plug it in and the default mappings would work. I mean, I say that we've covered many a game that do not fall into that, but it should be the exception and not the rule.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. A couple of extra bits they added. It looks like they're tidying up some of the Vulkan. So let's just go ahead and get the rumor mill started that, Street Fighter's incoming possibly first quarter of 2026. We're looking forward to
such optimism.
But the runtime stuff was neat, but somebody else had the multi-distro runtime compatibility thing.
They had this ticket open in their tracker on GitHub. This was actually opened by someone in Valve. They were asking, we have a couple potential ways on the table to start handling how linking C libraries with the Steam provided Mesa libraries don't really work all that well. People who run open source graphics know that they have to delete some of the Steam runtime libraries just to get things to work. And this has been a known issue. And so they put it out to the community. Here's a couple ways that distributions handle it. What are your suggestions? So on and so forth. And there's a lot of good discussion in the thread talking about potential solutions. One of the interesting ones was just shipping Steam as a flat pack, but that doesn't solve the problem of all your other games would need to be shipped as flat packs as well, and that would require essentially going back and repackaging every single game that has been released on Steam for Linux, which is going to be problematic. A lot of devs just kind of crap out their Linux version and leave it alone until the heat death of the universe. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion. They clearly found some way to do it. I think they're taking a page out of Ike's approach in Solus. Essentially having environment variables control the priority of libraries loaded.
Yeah, that's actually what they did with the introducing of that environment variable that I mentioned earlier.
You even see him commenting it in the thread, actually, now that I mentioned it.
Yeah, it's the very last comment. He actually links the Linux Steam integration thingy, which basically already did that. It would disable the runtime and would make sure all of your system libraries that Steam needs would get loaded properly. And it was a good idea to actually run that because it would ensure you would be running up-to-date versions of those libraries instead of relying on the basically deprecated versions that the runtime includes. It's probably a good idea.
Kind of defeats the purpose of the runtime, though, just because you're supposed to have a standard base that you compile and link against. But I understand why one would need to do that, and the reality of the situation versus ideal scenarios don't always match up. But Ven, you were mentioning before the show how you're wondering if there was some sort of coincidence between our previous story and the current one.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
What was going on? I thought all this was addressed in with the new Steam client beta. What are your thoughts?
I don't think it was a coincidence. I think they had a couple test implementations and they wanted to see what people thought of them before they released it into prime time.
Yeah, and
that's
considering that this thread on GitHub was started 19 days ago, yeah, that's probably the case.
Well, now that we have our Steam clients all sorted, let's head over and take a look at something we rarely get from Valve, and that's information. The top 100
I thought you were going to say games.
2016.
Shots fired. Oh.
The top games is measured by gross revenue this year. So they've broken it down. We have the platinum, we have the gold, we have the silver, bronze. Do we have poo? No.
Do we have honorable mentions?
No.
No.
But the one thing you definitely will notice through this rigmarole here is every single category has a beautiful, shiny Linux game in it. And the only, it's like, I saw The Witcher 3 and I was like, oh, sad face. Then I saw no cisgender male Sky, and I'm like, what the actual high hell? And how did that get in there?
Well, a little under half of the games in Platinum have Linux versions, which is pretty boss. Though, yeah, like you said, The Witcher 3 just keeps staring us in the face, like, we got your hopes up, you fucking assholes.
Well, let's just say they made that. Yeah, they made that particular non-announcement before the the backlash kicked in for the shit port that was The Witcher 2. Yeah.
But the nice thing is there are a lot of indie titles up on here, and it just goes to continue to prove that indie games are the lifeblood of Linux gaming, and without them and the hard work of the developers who toil day in and day out to crop them out, we wouldn't have much to do, or even much of a podcast.
Yeah.
So
here's the thing: there are a lot of indie titles, but none of them are in the Platinum category.
Really, Steam controllers and
yeah, the Steam controller was apparently a bestseller.
Oh. I mean, Steam Controller is way fun. It's my favorite game.
Although I don't really know how they managed to get Dota 2 and the Platinum thing, since it's free to play.
Yeah.
Well, it could be total gross revenue, like hats and whatnot.
Yeah. I guess they could be counting that.
I wonder how many people were playing that Dota 2.
Ooh.
Oh, yep. Yeah. We
Indeed. So on Linux only, and the percentage has gone up so very slightly from the previous survey that we covered, where the Linux is currently sitting at actually it's gone down. Sorry, my bad. 0.80% of the total OS versions, and yeah, not much else has changed except that Mac has also gone up slightly for some reason, as has Windows, obviously. The biggest change here in Linux land was specifically the multi-monitor desktop resolution. Apparently, more people are getting into, multi-monitor things, and they seem to be running two 1080p monitors side by side. That's what the desktop resolution is showing there.
But the sad thing is, if you look at the primary desktop resolution, 4K master race is shrinking slowly.
Yep. Yeah, people are still getting
your own joke
screens.
Well, you get your 1080ps, and I know a lot of people aspire for like 1440 or something like that. Jordan and I have, UHD monitors, but especially under Linux, I mean, it's pretty hit or miss on what you can actually push at that resi,
I'm honestly surprised there are still monitors being registered in like over 0.01 decimal points that are 1024 by 600. That's just astounding. Not 0.37% of people on Linux are using a screen like that. Upgrade your goddamn monitor, people, please.
Yeah, the worst thing on Linux is the AMD processor support, which has been consistently losing for the past however many years, and it's still at around 20-something% with all of the operating systems combined. But if you go to Linux specific, you're down to 16.42% AMD CPUs. Everything else is Intel. That's
I mean, if you're building a new computer recently, there's not really much of an option. If you're going for the lowest possible price, then you'd go AMD. But if you want performance, then
well, who knows? Ryzen might help us out with that, but let's get into the games.
Oh, yes. Visual Novel Maker. Available soon. Coming 2017. That's not the only thing that's going to be coming soon. Am I right?
Giggity.
Yeah. I mean, that's the obvious joke here is they're going to be using it to make hentai visual novels. I made that joke in the rundown. That's what that's about, in case you were confused.
Yeah, but in the show notes, you said that it was going to be a start of a trend.
Well,
it's already been happening.
When I say trend, I mean, like, if compared to like the indie smut section on Amazon, where you have a lot of people putting out like a lot of erotic short stories and novellas, whatever. Galileo's Intergalactic Gangbang comes to mind.
The entire Bigfoot trilogy.
Oh yeah, yep. I mean it's more of an epic than anything, but yeah, I mean maybe we're gonna start seeing a lot more of those games show up on the Steam store. There was that story on Kotaku earlier this week about that one game that like straight up deals with BDSM that took a while to get on the Steam store. But then you also have that game where you play a bunch of dicks and your goal is to fuck other people in the asses. That's a game that exists. It's on Steam.
Yes,
you can buy it. It's not on Linux, which is unfortunate because
the only thing I can say about this is, hey, fully illustrated LGC fanfic incoming, baby. So
no, hold on. There's one thing I'd like to bring up, which is the fact that the recommended system settings on Linux just says graphics. OpenGL hardware driver support. iOS 8.0, Android 4 plus star.
Listen, you don't even need a CPU to run this, man. This is some advanced technology.
But totally not speaking of Vikings.
Yeah, no, well, I was going to say, who else has advanced technology? Vikings. Okay. Space Vikings. Yeah, no, this is Viking Wolves of Midgard. It's out, or it's coming in early 2017, supposedly for around $34, which is a bit steep, but it looks like your standard Gauntlet Diablo forced beat 'em up, which, I mean, we don't really have a lot of them on Linux, so it'll be nice to have another one of them. Hopefully it's actually good, because it looks pretty decent, and I love Viking mythology. Yes. I'm a big fan of like the Finnish myths and the Nordic and Denmarkian. That's what you call yourselves, right? Denmarkians, Denmarklars.
I don't know. I'm definitely looking at this. I think this thing will live or die on its sword, depending on whether or not you can actually feel when you hit something, Pedro. Because I see a lot of these games that we've gotten.
And that was actually one of the big killers for Diablo 3 when it first came out. It didn't feel like you were having any impact on the enemy at all. Whenever you hit something, it basically felt like you were hitting them with a feather duster. But yeah, no, like Jordan already said, looking at the screenshots and the trailer video, it looks really, really good. Remains to be seen how well it will perform on the Linux system.
Speaking of how well it performs, all of the minimum and recommended
TBD.
System specs, TBT, and they're asking you to give a faithful 15% off pre-purchase for 33.99 watt stinky caches. It's a bit of a tough sell. What's up next?
Up next, we have, well, you guys remember
Arch. Ark.
Well, not Arch, but Ark Survival Evolved. It's that Unreal 4, one of the very few Unreal 4 games that actually have a Linux version out, and they had a big controversy a while back when they decided to release an expansion pack for an early access game. That's a bad idea, but to sort of equate that in the karma scales, they decided we're going to support Vulkan and Metal. Really?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, apparently Vulkan is coming for Linux and Metal is coming for Mac in 2017. They also say in parentheses major graphics improvements. Remains to be seen, but if this particular tweet did something was actually renew my interest in Ark as it is.
I don't know, man. I definitely could never really get into Rust with dinosaurs, but Jordan, you had a different take.
Yeah, I might reinstall it. Here's the main problem I have with it. If they're saying, oh yeah, we're doing Vulkan for Linux and Metal for Mac, are you going to be using Vulkan for the Windows code base as well? Because that's kind of the point. If you're going to be supporting DX12, Vulkan, and Metal, you're adding a bunch of work on it. I mean, how long is that actually going to be supported? It's a valid question.
I don't know. I kind of get a feeling they're just putting this out there and like, hey, we're going to work on it. And I was kind of reading between the lines. It's like, yeah, well, we're just waiting on that Unreal Engine 4 Vulkan button. Then we'll be right on it. It's Vulkan button.
Maybe they're hoping to throw out Ark Survival Evolved on the Nintendo Switch. Who knows?
Well, Foxy threw a bit of news our way, and that's Demon's game released on Steam with our favorite engine Ledvux, and well, okay, it made the notes. A Demon's game. Oh, it's episodic. Yeah, no. Wow.
And it's an early access because of course it is.
It just keeps getting better, doesn't it? On $3.99. What is it? You never heard of it? It's a very unique title, but keeps true to its horror roots. The game focuses on creating a terrifying. So let's check out these. Okay. Logical, but what made me laugh is this First review. Just finished playing the game. Thought I'd have to say it's totally awesome. I love it. The suspense to the max. Total thriller. Definitely recommend it. You should buy it now. Hell yeah. Enjoy it. Fucking really, son. I mean, obvious much?
Yeah, I mean, we gotta give some props because this is Leadworks game number 2, or maybe it's Leadworks game number 1.2 because of the episodic thing. Maybe we can call it game number 2 when they actually release the finished product. But it could be interesting. Giant labyrinthine mazes with like a single demon you need to kill, and you got to figure out how to do it. It's an interesting concept for a game. Maybe it'll bring attention to Mr. Clint's engines.
I hope it does, and I hope it's no pump action captain. I mean, this we're done having our fun with it. It looks better than pump action captain, right?
That's not a hard bar to leap over.
Yeah, but it seems to fall into that particular trope of horror games, especially crappy horror games on Steam, which is, let's make everything pitch dark where you can't see a goddamn thing. And
well, that's how you hide the graphical fidelity issues with Leadworks, right? You just make it dark. So
I guess, yeah, because that's really not going to help you in the long run, because people are just going to start to... Ironically, they will start to see through your bullshit, and you're not looking at a bright future.
They can't, because it's dark, right? You can't see anything.
Hence the ironic bit.
And that's enough darkness jokes. They're imprisoning me, and it's all that I see. So coming up next, old Intel laptops get better OpenGL support, and we get Dolphin on PS4 on Vulkan.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, avert your eyes. We're about to start whoring ourselves real hard.
I mean, now you can unavert your gaze, because I'm about to get naked, and I want that image to be burned into your imaginations until you die. you hear the screams of agony. That's what I live on. Also money, and if you wanna help out with that, you can head on over to LinuxGameCast.com, click on that support the shows button, where we got some lovely stuff for you. We got Amazon affiliate links, we got PayPal donato buttons. It's a bunch of good stuff to help you support the show, because we like to be independent. We like to not be beholden to sponsors and other interests, so we can give you the uncensored, unabridged version of us, which you guys seem to appreciate. And there are a couple of people who we'd like to give some extra thanks to this week. We got Atomic Ass upped his pledge, as did Jeremy C. And we got 2 new ones, Linux Not 00B and System T, not System D.
Hey man, don't forget Nick G also kicked in some wet stickies, helping make this nightmare train possible.
That wasn't in the notes, so fuck you, then. Fuck you. Way to make me look like an asshole. You son of a bitch. But yeah, no, we got some lovely RSS feeds for you. We're starting to record the pre-shows of just us doing sound checks and talking about stuff, so you can get that for only $1 an episode, which is pretty good. Yes. That 5 cents an episode is going away because Patreon is tired of eating credit card charges. But I mean, whatever. How many quarters has it been?
It's 16 quarters a month. I mean, that's just, for you can find that. I would say like in one of those phone things, but it's like bizarre ancient tales of the past. But yes, man, definitely Atomic, Jeremy, Linux Noob, System T, Nick G. Thanks for helping us make this possible. We're definitely chugging back along in the right direction. We had a bit of fall off, and it picks back up at, back into this month. We're really looking at around that $200 goal. If we can hit that $200 goal, I give you my word, I will buy the bonded router thing and another modem, and we will never have this issue again. But let's get into the news.
Let's, in true LGC tradition, and I kind of forced this one in because it affects me personally. That's the only reason it's in the show notes at all. It's the Mesa drivers now support OpenGL 4.0 on Haswell GPUs. If you have like Gen 1 or Gen 2 Haswell, that's Gen 7 Plus, as they call it. If you have one of those, Haswell is finally one step closer to full OpenGL compliance. This latest patch introduces the FP64 shaders, which are basically all of the tessellation and all of the advanced shaders, as it were, that you need for OpenGL 4. And that was something that was already available if you had a Broadwell processor. That particular integrated GPU could already push that, but now if you have an old laptop like I do, which admittedly I bought a couple of months ago, but it came with a Haswell processor, and it's kind of awesome to see OpenGL 4.0 running. And this is also good news because it means that the only other extension that is keeping Haswell from full OpenGL 4.5 compatibility is the Vertex Atrib 64-bit extension. And according to Yago Terrell, the guy who pushed this particular patch set to enable FP64, according to him, this is a much smaller patch set and therefore should land much sooner and with much less of a delay than the 4.0 did. Because if you watch the X Developers Conference live streams on YouTube a couple of months ago, you will have seen Yago Terrell himself give out a talk speaking about this particular issue and why it took so long for Broadwell to get it at all, and why the architectural differences in Broadwell and Haswell made it take even longer. So that's kind of awesome.
Well, the only thing I'm really looking forward to regarding this is because we're getting better and better OpenGL implementation on Intel IGPs. Slowly but surely, the OpenGL vendor neutral dispatch is making more and more progress. Yes. So I'll have a decent OpenGL implementation regardless of which render device I choose on my laptop, which will be nice. Also, being able to keep all those Mesa libraries and not have the NVIDIA installer overwrite all of them.
I guess what I really want to ask you, Pedro, I don't have a hassle. What does this really mean? I mean, what games can you play now that you couldn't previously play?
Actually, a considerable amount, especially the Talos Principal. Talos Principal.
You like Disciper.
Yes. No, if you wanted to play it at OpenGL, if you put the graphics down to lowest, you could actually get by with just 3.3. But anything above that, and the game would launch once. But since the tessellation shaders could not be compiled, the game would just segfault after that. You'd have to clear the shader cache.
You could run it with Vulkan without much of an issue, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could run it with Vulkan, but again, it was missing tessellation shaders, so you couldn't really get the full Vulkan.
Not necessarily for Vulkan, no?
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, it does, because the Talos Principal is not a native Vulkan implementation. They added Vulkan afterwards, so there's still some lingering OpenGL issues with it, even if you're using Vulkan. The tessellation shaders being one of them. So, kind of awesome to see this.
Well, I guess on the topic of Vulkan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that Nintendo console, that doesn't support it, that we have an emulator for. That actually does support Vulkan, so that makes it super weird. Yeah, this is the Dolphin Progress Report. We periodically cover them when they release them, just because they're full of interesting bits, and we all wish that more open source projects would release sort of state of the projects and stuff that they've achieved. They've had a couple of issues resolved with this last batch of changes in December. Mm-hmm. Notably, you can now select a microphone in a sane manner because the GameCube microphone goes in through the memory card slot, and that presents all sorts of interesting problems. They also have, it's a 5-year-old transparency issue that you can't even see via the naked eye, but they've been aware of it, and they've finally been able to put a cap on it. It's done, all the transparency stuff should work. They've improved some texture decoding stuff to allow for some better upscaling to higher resolutions beyond the Wii or the GameCube's native resolution. And one of the neat bits of progress they made was for GameCube demo CDs, you can now just rip the demos directly off the disc and launch them through Vulkan. You don't have to actually go through the boot process of the demo disc to get to the demo, which is interesting because for the for the Wind Waker demo, the actual demo CD imposes a 20-minute time limit and will kick you off. If you launch the demo directly through Dolphin, you can play as long as you want. So that's a bit neat. It's always good seeing these guys put out more and more progress because, it's nice to be able to play Smash on Linux, even if it's not 100% native.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the things you can look for. And I mean, what's wrong with a little Metroid Prime every now and then?
Yeah, absolutely nothing whatsoever. As long as it's the original version and not, say, someone who wasted a bunch of time creating a project which then got DMCA'd by Nintendo. Waste of time. Yes, but say Jordan mentioned, playing a game non-natively in a system it was never meant to play that particular game. Well, there's... yeah, it goes so much deeper because the fine folks behind the PS4 Linux project have managed to not only get Dolphin running on the PS4, they've managed to get it running with Vulkan on the PS4, yeah. When you want to play that Nintendo... Yeah, if you want to play that Nintendo game on a Sony console, running Linux, using Vulkan, it's the thing that should not be.
Well, I mean, that was the thing. Once upon a time, we very, very likely could have had the Nintendo PlayStation, so that just kind of harkens back to it. It actually reminds me of that guy who got Windows 3.1 or Windows 95 running on a DOS box on an iPad. I love stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, let's take this piece of hardware that was never meant to run this piece of software and do it. I mean, then you disagree, but I think maybe Nintendo or Sony are going to start coming down with a bit of cease and desist. Even though they can't legally enforce it, they can cost the devs a lot lot of money. In terms
I don't even know where they're really going to go with that. I mean, if they do that, Sony's not hella litigious, but litigious is Englishman. But at least here in the States, reverse engineering is totes legal. And they can't really do anything. Yeah, they could do some like photos like, oh, booger, we're threatening a lawsuit. But I'm pretty sure the Free Software Foundation will back them up and be like, peace among worlds. We got this. Let's dance. Interesting, fun project. Pedro, are you planning to run out and buy PS4 anytime soon?
Yeah, not unless I could fire it up beforehand and see which firmware version it was running. Because if it's already been updated, if it's one of the newer revisions, you're not getting Linux on it. There hasn't been an exploit that can work on the newer versions of the firmware. So
and they don't have to pay you $30 to take that away.
Yeah.
Other OS.
The spice must flow. Dune Legacy 0.96.4 has been released. We got some new AI in there. They have a hardware acceleration for the drawing, but the big thing, port to SDL2. That means things work better. Oh, look, they finally got 64 built for Windows. That's adorable.
Yeah, I mean, if Dune 2000 using OpenRA is a bit too modern for you, you can go back in time to the DOS days, the battle days, and play Dune Legacy, which actually I don't think this one straight up requires the game assets. This is a reimagining type thing. Am I right?
Yeah, no, the thing that really kicks me is they say HD graphics for Dune Legacy, and then you see the screenshots. It's like that since when does that qualify as HD?
Well, I gotta be perfectly honest, man. I remember playing this Dune game in DOS, and I burned some mothering hours in this thing. Really got me into this sort of thing. Yeah, this looks reimagined. Then again, rose-colored glasses. I'd have to go back in. Yeah, take a look. But hey, man, it's completely priced to sell, and unfortunately, it is on SourceForge, but it's still there. DuneLegacy.sourceforge.net. All of this will be in our show notes. What's coming up next?
Well, I found this thing on Chay's Twitter, Chadine from Root Gamer. But it seemed a bit interesting. So. The Intel guys have put out their own Linux distribution. It's called Clear Linux. And unlike what this clickbaity title would indicate, it's not really for gaming. It's primarily meant for OpenGL workstations and for development and whatnot, where you need up-to-date and performant Intel drivers so that you can do all your crazy OpenGL stuff, as we were discussing in a couple stories ago. Mm-hmm. But, there is a thought. Well, because Intel IGP support under Linux is improving, and you're ideally getting something that is developed from the ground up to work with the Intel IGP drivers, you might actually get some decent performance out of your games if you're running just an IGP only. Well, certainly some FNA stuff will, because Flibbit proved that trivial mcopy operations, removing those will improve performance. But I mean, it's interesting to see a different approach to how graphics are handled in Linux.
Yeah, no, this entire article, it's just, well, the moment you get to the title, it's, oh, look, it's Bettridge's Law of Headlines. No, is the answer to that. No, it won't. Well, because there's the whole lack of support for dedicated GPUs, as they say in the article itself. And it's kind of, it's not completely unexpected because Intel doesn't really make dedicated GPUs. So yeah, that's what you're looking at. But that kind of also kills it for gaming purposes. Sure, you could probably game on an Intel IGP on the very lowest settings with a passable frame rate. I know I have. I've managed to get Borderlands 2 to run at a constant 30 frames per second with everything on low on the cheapo calculator, and that's an i3 at 1.6 gigahertz with an HD 4400 GPU. So that's something, I guess.
Well, if they're going to call it Clear Linux, is their first point release going to be called Cruz, Travolta, or Smith?
It could be called Ramini.
Ooh.
Oh, ooh.
That's fresh.
Scientology jokes. Please don't sue us, David Miscavige. Well, coming up next, exactly what David Miscavige wants out of us: silence. And I'm going to leave it there. On the fields of Trenzalore, at the fall of the 11th, when no living creature could speak falsely or fail to answer, a question will be asked, a question that must never, ever be answered. Well, yeah, if you didn't get the reference, this is Silence. The Whispered World from Deadlick Entertainment, developed on the Unity engine, surprisingly. You can pick it up for around $29.90 of your local currency, although if you live in Canada, you're paying $40 because y'all suck! Woo! What is it? Can you save Silence, the grim but also serene world between life and death? Can you help Noah find his little sister Irini? In this suffering world, can you bring her home, explore the Silence, and join the siblings on their adventurous journey quest? Mm-hmm. Anyways, so yes. I ran out of journey adventure synonyms because I don't have a thesaurus handy. Anyways, CHAIRQUISITION. 1 chair means that it's garbage. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. 4 chairs means that it's awesome. And we apply these scores to our categories: Oh Doom, mixed with the working, shiny, sounds, controls, and fun. So Ven, did Silence, the Whispered World, make with the working?
Over here on the Ubuntu 1604 box of business, I'm running an 8150 980 power displayed at UHD. It ran pretty good, Brad. I was terribly impressed with it. I mean, constantly maintaining 60 FERPs, not only at 1080, but 3840 by 2160. And for a Unity title, that's hella rare. Really, the only thing I have a legitimate complaint about, which is not really legitimate, is the Daedalic.de EN homepage. It's 19 fucking megabytes, Brad. I mean, I can't ding you a chair for that, but seriously, goddamn, 4 chairs.
Yeah, like I was honestly surprised. It was like, this is a Unity game. Why is it running at 60 FPS at UHD on max? Is it because I have VSync on? No. Oh shit, this is a well-performing Unity title. Shock mon shocks. Although, one thing to bring up is all the videos, all the pre-rendered cutscenes are at 720p at 30, which just look like total crap on a UHD monitor. But such is life. On the i7 6700K with the GTX 980 with 60 or 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, yeah, running Fedora 2464, but this gets 4 chairs.
Yeah, no, makes with the working wise over here on the FX 8370E and the GeForce GTX 1080. It ran at a constant 60 because the game is actually VSync on by default, but apparently it performs at 60 even at 4K. I wouldn't know. I have 1080p screens, so hey, for me it gets 4 chairs.
All right, well that's 4 chairs for Mixed with Working. Up next is Shiny and Sounds. Ben.
Yes, ma'am. All right. I'm going to agree with you. I didn't want to throw this in makes with the working, but definitely with the Shawnian sounds. What first hits your face organ when you fire this thing up is this miserably encoded 30 FERPs, and then, man, I don't even think it's running at 30. This game is going to be shit. Then you're pleasantly surprised when it goes to in-engine. You're like, oh, why didn't you just do the in-engine thing? Why did you record this? I mean, seriously, whoever encoded that intro video should be shot. You know what? Nay. They should be stabbed in their reproductive organ, whatever it may be. That's just bad. However, it's fucking gorgeous. It is well done. I mean, if someone's like, well, this is from AAA Studio, it's just like, absolutely it is. Very colorful. Animation rigging is spot on. And I mean, just the direction in the cutscenes, when you're not really doing anything, the camera work on that, whoever was in charge of that, you're going to go on and do great things because you're a solid mofo. Definitely digging this. The sounds, voice acting, completely passable. It was like, oh my God, this is great. I was like, no, but it's believable. And that's something we don't normally get. Looking good, sounding good, playing very well, minus that animated intro cutscene. For fuck's sake, just redo that in engine because that is not how you want to come out of the box. Because I almost, Vulkan pinched Alt F4 on this game, but fortunately I stuck through, and I'm going to find out that I was kind of pleased I did. Somebody give us a solid 3 chairs from an indie title.
Yeah, it sounds really good, but there are a couple issues, like the fact that there isn't any lip sync. So when you're watching people talk and their mouths go,
didn't have that problem.
Yeah, I did. That's a problem I have, staring at people's mouths while they talk. And considering this game is really dialogue heavy, it does get a little distracting. As does, well, so all the backgrounds are matte paintings, and they're really well done. They're beautiful. It's great. But it's 3D models on 2D matte backgrounds, and if you're staring at the map or at the screen for a while because you're waiting for the animation of whatever you were doing to finish for the umpteenth time, you start to realize, hey, these pop out, or hey, they're just stretching this image to give the illusion of depth. This isn't actually modeled out. So it's enough to where it's noticeable. And yeah, the voice acting is pretty good. Even the little child actress they got for playing the little girl is passable, which is, pretty good for a child actress. I'll give it a solid 3 chairs. Very good looking, very good sounding. Just a couple little issues, and that's it.
Yeah, no, frame rate is usually something we'll rag on during the makes with a working bit. But in this case, it very much plays into the aesthetics. It's jarring, really, really jarring to see the game go from 30 FPS to 60 FPS and then back the moment a cutscene starts. Because both the cutscenes and the world are beautifully designed. There's absolutely no issues whatsoever with the actual in-game footage. And it looks so really jarring. Why would you do something like this? Now, the voice acting, as has been mentioned, is great. It's really, really good. And the script behind it is also really good. But like Jordan mentioned, the lack of lip sync doesn't really help it all that much. But I will give it bonus points for the fact that it's not every game which manages, to give me goosebumps during the intro cutscene, based solely on hand-drawn visuals and an awesome soundtrack. It's really, really good, but it has issues, so it gets 3 chairs.
All right, that's 3 chairs for Shani and Sounds. Let's move on to Control. Then, how did it control?
Well, one thing I do want to comment on, over there with Kubuntu, I never had a problem with lip sync. When I'm saying that, it was working fine and still currently working. I didn't experience any issues with that. But, nay, we are talking about controls. This thing controls very well, surprisingly well, considering I was using the X-Clone controller to use it. I wasn't using my gerbil. Then, but this is a hidden thing. Why weren't you using your gerbil? Are you high? And to which I would reply, that is a rhetorical question, madam. But with the X-Clone controller, surprisingly, I could sit back on the couch organ I have here in the studio, with my little 28-inch monitor, and have a reasonably good time. The one little issue I do have with it is, with the controller, it can be a bit janky. when selecting some of the targets, because it's kind of got a cheat button when you press down on the D-pad, and you're like, okay, that's there. Why can't I get that? You're like, tap, 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 blowing on it, see if you get there. And it will eventually do that. But that is enough to ding it a chair, I do believe. But 3, you might not have that issue. Play this with a gerbil, but I think this is definitely the type of game you want to sit back, relax, grab an adult, and play in big picture mode.
Yeah, they have those annoying like mouse movement mini games, QuickTime events things. The problem is the game doesn't capture like the screen or your cursor to the screen. So if you have a crazy monitor set up like me, you'll try and do something and then realize your cursor is on 2 monitors over, and the game is whatever timer for that thing you're doing has ran off. There's also the balancing mini game, which is fun because I have to jack off my mouse by going, which I totally sort of fluked into, because I was like, is it going to be one of those things where I'm going to have to jerk my mouse back and forth really quick? Oh, yeah, it is. Well, but beyond the general point and clickiness, there are a couple issues with selecting things or trying to get actions done, especially when you're dealing with your little worm friend Spot. But beyond that, there's not really much. It's just the UI will hide stuff from you, and you have to go through like the false dead ends to actually get new options that are the actual solutions presented. That's more of a fun section thing, and I'll talk about that a little more. Actually, Ben will talk about it a lot more because he has a lot to say about that. But beyond that, 3 chairs for Control. Pretty good.
Well, there are a whole of 2 buttons for this game. There's the action/move button, which is bound to both the left click and the right click, and the hint button, which is bound to the middle click. And everything else is just cursor driven. You swing the gerbil around and you make things happen. It's really hard to cock it up, especially if you have like a point and click adventure game like this one is. It's really hard to cock it up. So I didn't run into any issues with the mouse escaping the window all that much. So I don't know what the hell Jordan's on about. So I'm gonna give it 4 chairs.
All right. Well, you're not running separate X screens, so I don't know what the hell your problem is. That's 3 chairs for Control. Let's wrap this up with fun. Ben, did you have fun playing Silence?
Well, you start off with this game and you're running. There's like, oh, there's a bomb shelter. There's a war going on, and you nope inside the bomb shelter, and it's you playing the slightly older, maybe preteen brother and a very young girl. I've already named it. I was like, smart move, man. Food. That's her name. Who's surprisingly annoying, too, for something that is a consumable. But here's some issues, man. I mean, the game is fun. It's fun. You go on this adventure. You go into the fantasy land, and it's all this bullshit. I mean, it's extremely fucking well written, though. I mean, now that I'm going back and I'm thinking about it, I was like, it ties together very well from your stark reality. And I really hope this game has, I mean, I'm probably going to finish this game because I genuinely want it to have like some dark, fucked up, twisted ending. I'm looking at you going home. That's definitely a thing. One of the things that annoys me is basically everything's set in stage scene. You're like, okay, this scene, then you move to another scene, then it auto saves. And if you don't play your card organs just right without autosave, sometimes you can be met with up to a 5-minute dialogue session that you have to rewatch. But to break up that monotony, they will give you, some choices. And you're like, oh, choices. This will affect the outcome of the game. Bullshit. It doesn't. Seriously. First of all, you just got to let us skip through that. I mean, because, I don't want to sit through that bullshit every time I save incorrectly and I got to go through all of this. Or at least you need to nope your autosave mechanic for this game, because it is hit or miss. It always saves, but sometimes it's save plus you need to get up and go do something. You try to alt-tab out of the game. Game's like, fuck you, I'm going to go to the pause menu. So you can't bullshit your way out of that. But with those choices, since I've had to sit through those screens and, just character dialogue, story development, first time you hear it, it's great. The third time, not so much. Like, well, should I be angry? Should I be sad? Or, how you should interact with the game. I picked multiple opposite choices of each other's on several occasions. Because recently I just chose the exact opposite for all of the questions in, like, the reunion scene that you made me sit through twice. It led to the same outcome. So, illusion of choice much? that kind of zaps some of the fun out of this game, because like, well, maybe I'm affecting something and something you're really not. Maybe later on in the game, the branch prediction goes out, but currently in the first 2 hours I put into it, the branches just come right back together and lead you into the same thing. Really the only thing I'm not really hating on it, but the cute, lovable sidekick spot, just a bit over the top on the cute and lovable stuff. It kind of sticks out just a bit much. Fun game. Maybe wait until it's 10% off. I would say if you have a kid, maybe a teenager, give them this. This is not for little kids because, I mean, they're dropping like F and S bombs all the time. So that could freak some parents out. If you're like me, you know, rocking in your 30s, it's a good story. Might have made a better movie than an interactive game, but I do like it. I like it lots, and I'm going to keep playing, and it better not let me down on that sick, twisted ending. 3 chairs.
Yeah, going back to Vince's point about watching a movie, this is totally one of the games where you're going to be sitting there listening to some dialogue, and then there's a pause. And then you realize this pause has gone on for a little too long. Is something up? Oh, they're expecting me to do something. Huh. And that statement really encapsulates the main problem with the game, is that I would totally watch a movie or a miniseries or like a TV show about the story of this game. It's interesting. The characters are well written. The dialogue is surprisingly sharp for a kid's game. Reminds me a lot of Over the Garden Wall, which I'm pretty sure they've stolen quite a bit from in terms of inspiration, but that's fine. Over the Garden Wall is a decent series. But yeah, the gameplay elements become the sort of tedious distraction. I want to immerse myself more in the story of this world and these characters and what's going on. And periodically I have to go through some convoluted puzzle mechanics. And that's not a good sign for this game. Also, like Ben said, I've had this game crash on me exactly once, and that was in the middle of a selection thing, so I had to give it the Vulkan nerve pinch of Alt F4, come back in. Then I had to sit through about 5-10 minutes of dialogue, false choice, dialogue. Okay, I'm back to where I was, which is really annoying. Yeah, if you just I get not wanting to make people save scum, so just give them the one save slot per thing, and that's it. That's all you need to do. But yeah, no, the story is very well written, though. It leans a little heavily on the tropes that it's trying to make fun of or pay homage to, which, I mean, that you only care about that if you're a jaded story buff like me. And yeah, no, it's a very good story, which is the cornerstone of a good adventure game. It's just a little too good. I would rather really sit back and watch someone else play this and just sort of absorb the story itself. But I definitely suggest giving it a look. Maybe wait till it goes on sale for a wee cheaper than it is. $40 Canadian is a little much to scoff at. So I'll give this 2 chairs. Very, very good. Just, make it a movie. Don't make it a game.
I am definitely not the target audience here. In fact, from what I played of the game so far, and I'm about 3.5 hours in, this is geared more towards parents of children age, say, 8 to 12. If you want to play a game with your kid, this is definitely something you should be looking at. It tackles some more grown-up material, but with a charm and a light enough mood, which could serve as an awesome aid for you as a parent to talk to your offspring about those very same subjects. That's all acceptable. The limited control scheme and the simple point-and-click mechanics are perfect for an introductory video game should, said offspring be on track to getting into the world of video games. Now, even though I am aware of this, and I am not being aware that I'm not the target audience, the first hour or so, I was hooked. Silence manages to be kid-friendly, but not condescendingly so, which is actually what happens with many children-orientated games/media. And that means that even a completely fucking jaded 30-something-year-old asshole on the internet can find some enjoyment in it. It wasn't until I hit a particularly convoluted puzzle, which is the one you see me stuck on the footage of right about now, that I stopped to take stock of what was actually happening. Now, for all my spiels about mechanics being the driving force behind a video game, I too can recognize that you can in fact have a very good game focusing solely on the aesthetics and the narrative. And this game does the latter two very, very well, even if there are some nits to be picked at. This is also a great teaching aid if you'd like to, give your kids a crash course in patience, because goddamn, those loading screens take forever. 2 chairs.
That was also a brief lesson in patience. You get 2 chairs for fun, and if we tally all that up, that's 3 chairs for silence. So fun thoughts, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. And the people who give the best advice about gaming for children are the ones who don't have kids. That at least
Our 30-year-old childless men, yeah.
Yeah, I know. See, according to what Vince told me regarding our audience, audience and the age range where our viewer bell curve falls on YouTube, chances are, if you're watching this, you're probably at the age of having, or at least thinking of having kids. If not, good on you. But if you do decide to spawn one of those shrieking goblins and decide to introduce them to video games, this is a very good one to start with.
Yeah, people talk about point-and-click adventure games as sort of the realm of failed film writers and failed film directors, and this one kind of rings true, but that doesn't stop it from being a very good story and a very well put together game. I would recommend checking it out. So, coming up next, we have an uncharacteristically large hate mail section where someone's asking me to clean my webcam. Hold on, let me put this in my mouth.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're almost through this particular episode of Linux Gamecast Weekly. Yes, it's that time. You get to hate on us, the 3 males. Yes. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send some hate, send some love, send some general disagreements our way. You can do so by going to linuxgamecast.com. You hit the contact button. You pick LGC Weekly to send some hate mail or some feedback for LWDW. And you fill out the form. It's pretty easy. The captions are really not that hard. I mean, it's elementary school maths. Although if you skipped elementary school, you could probably get through it just fine. It's okay. Just
not a place
get someone else to help you. It's fine. If you want to leave us, maybe a comment on Patreon, we will be happy to feature that particular bit of hate mail right here or right now. So let's get on to it. What do we have up this week?
It's directed at Jordan, so I'll take this so you may retort. So,
all right,
all right. God damn, you mean flying spaghetti monster? Damn it, Narlin, right? Jordan, clean your mothering camera lens. You've had spittle stuck on it far, far too long, and now it's making my eye organ twitch.
I'm sorry. Am I making you twitch with my spittle on the camera? I'm sorry. It's so distraughting and distracting to you. All right, I'm done.
I actually know what he's on about because Jordan used to have a poster to his right, and it does look like there's shit on the camera, but it's just the the gum sticky stuff.
Yeah, it's gum or paint missing, depending on what stain. I
thought it was just about the general yettiness that Jordan has about him the whole time, because it's always blurry.
That's because not even Skype wants to take pictures of me that are clear and recognized.
I mean, I kind of get it. Let's face it, I have a 1080p camera I can't really use right now. So, up next, we have a mental playground. Is there a chance to get MP3 download software? Yeah, it's called VLC, Rhythm Box, tons of others.
Curl,
so many. This is perfect show for driving traffic. Not sure if this is a compliment or not.
Okay, to put this in the proper context, what you got to do is look at the show notes. This is our normal 4-hour-long LGC Weekly uncut for the Patreons. You get it, a week early. I think the gist of this is, could you turn that into an MP3? You know, maybe somebody has a long haul, short, medium haul, giggity drive. Could we make that an MP3? If we got a couple of Patreons who are like, hey, that's a good idea, I want a 4-hour long MP3. We now have a Patreon MP3 feed, so scream in my direction. It's doable. It wouldn't be that much of a nightmare fuel, but yeah, let me know. We could definitely make that happen. What do we have last, Jay baby?
The last one.
Oh, okay.
Before we get to that, it still boggles my mind that people would be willing to listen to us.
Pedro, they fast forward through your parts.
Fine, that's fine. You can fast forward through my bits all you want.
Pedro. If Justin Bieber has listenership in the millions, we got to be appealing to some percentage of the human population.
I mean, seriously, have you ever listened to Pedro in like double 2x speed? He sounds like the most adorable chipmunk you ever.
It makes me want to murder some chipmunks. But anyways, this is from Samurai or Samurai J or Samarage. I don't know. He says, just saying, Magia is a unique and complete distro, yet not mentioned and much, and for the most part gets no love from the Linux community. Hashtag Ubuntu alternative. Hashtag Magia challenge. Now, if I'm remembering this correctly, Magia is an offshoot of Mandrake Linux, yeah?
Mm.
Yeah. Mandrake.
Yeah, so I mean, Mandrake was sort of. I mean, I actually know people who worked on Mandrake Linux. The current head of Fedora QA used to be the head of QA or used to be a QA guy for Mandrake back in the day. But I mean, RPM-based distros, really, the only ones people care about these days are CentOS and the Fedoras. Although I'm not even sure if Magia uses RPMs anymore. I could be horribly, horribly wrong. Send your hate mail to Pedro at LinuxGameCast.com with any and all corrections.
As far as I'm concerned, they still do, yes. But maybe I'll give it to the Korora guys, although admittedly I haven't used Korora in a while, so I don't know how they have been, getting on with the new versions, especially with Wayland. Kind of curious to see that. Maybe I'll have some news for you on Wednesday.
Yeah, you just got to remember that, at the end of the day, take that shot. All Linux is best Linux, and that's one of the beautiful things about our wild, dysfunctional family. You can always find something that scratches that particular itch that you like and be like, hey, man, I like this. I want to tell people about it, and some other people might like it. They might not. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're all running that Linux kernel. But on that beautiful bombshell, let's go ahead and cue the music. You can always find us around 9:30 Eastern Standard Moon Time. Even if we do have to do that Portuguese reach around like we did tonight, we're always going to we're going to find a way. We're going to find a way. Snap into that Slim Jim, brother. Into your face organs. Into your eye pussies. But I've been Vince Stone at Vince Stone on the Twitternets plus Vince Stone on the G+.
I'm Jordan Swung. You can find me getting all sorts of GNU utilities working with non-Linux kernels because I'm a bit of a masochist like that. You can find me at The Burning Fool on Twitter, plus Jordan Swung on Google+.
And I am Pedro Mateos. You can usually find me basically ignoring Twitter at unaccounted for, unless it's a Saturday night or
ignoring Twitter? Oh, somebody try to argue with him and see how long he...
No, if you want to argue with me on Twitter, it's fine. I get really creative when I'm limited to 140 characters. That's awesome.
Fight me IRL, bruh, hashtag.
But if you want to see some screenshots or some general ramblings regarding some Linuxy games that I may be playing, you can kind of follow me on plus Pedro Mateos on Google+. I have a particular collection of posts called Linux Gaming. Yeah, I know, very, very creative. You can follow me there too. It's all right, if I may say so myself.
So
it really isn't.
We learned that come rain, sleet, snow, or fucking Charter Communications, LGC must go on. Right.
The spice must flow.
We're all up in your grill all the goddamn time. You can't get rid of us. We're like a rash.
We're like the good type of cancer.
we're like glitter. You can't get rid of us ever. Ever. 5 dudes.